All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us. As I said, this afternoon, this morning for some of you. As you well know, every week we do This Week in Review. So we are back to talk about some of the news that have made the rounds in the entertainment industry. And of course, as always, I am not alone to discuss some of these topics. I have a fellow co-creator, Jerome Bourgeois, with me. What's going on, man? How you doing? What's up? What's up? What's up? All right. So as I mentioned before, there are some news, some things that went down this week. So without further ado, I know we were running just a little bit behind earlier today. Let's just hit the ground running, shall we? And of course, I got to start it off with my first topic for today. So I'm gonna pull that up here and run it for a little bit so you guys get an idea, and we'll play it.
It's a gift.
Hey, that looks cool.
I'm so excited.
Are you ready?
Tons of gore, violence, let's do this.
Let's frickin' go! Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Muy buena.
Oh my god!
So yes, there has been some news that has dropped with Mortal Kombat, and with that particular story, apparently there was some awesomeness that happened with the trailer, as you can see with that promo that they dropped. So the MK trailer, if you guys weren't aware, this week actually became the highest, or the most viewed Red Band trailer. The most viewed Red Band trailer ever. Set the record. So let me get that here. Hold on. So I want to be able to skip to the end. I'm not going to play the whole video, mind you.
That looks so freaking good.
I gotta watch the trailer like 1,000 times.
So yes, it was the highest viewed Red Band trailer. With that being said, I'll pause it right there. Jerome, what are your thoughts on this news? It's not shocking, because there has been so much of a fever pitch with this film. So tell me, what you're thinking.
I think it shows that the appetite fans have for R-rated combat movie personally. Hasn't been a Mortal Kombat movie since like the theaters. I know there was that webisode series of that. Basically, yeah, I think it's a combination of that, and also everyone's in their homes and getting devices and watching stuff. So that's also probably why you got.
Yeah, and to talk on that, further, I feel that it was incredibly smart. Whoever's doing, the marketing, with this film, good on you, to not cave on, all the noise that you were probably hearing from a lot of people of, where's this trailer? Where's the trailer? Where's the trailer? Like that's all you were hearing like the past few months, since a lot of people knew that it would be a part of this new like dual release that they're doing with Warner Brothers. So, with them giving kind of like teases of it in the promotional material that they had with a lot of these films that will, release simultaneously in theaters and also on HBO Max. Good on you, and really holding off, taking your time and making sure that it was, at a level where people were were completely, caught unawares and, impressed by the package that you had, on display in this trailer. Now, it still remains to be seen if the movie will be any good. However, we're at a good start for sure with what has been provided with this trailer. So as I said, that was the initial story that I wanted to touch on today. But we do have some more news in the superhero realm. So apparently, and let me pull it up here. There is some news in the world of Krypton and the Man of Steel. So via a story, and Jerome, if you want to, take it up, pick it up from here, I'll pull up the information that we have, or I should say the B-roll. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing the Superman shirt. Hey, this one actually might be really good. I mean, we'll see. I think it's pretty much Ta-Nehisi Coates, famous writer. He's written for Marvel, Black Widow. And he had some of his works turned into Between the World and Me. That was adapted to HBO. He has stuff already popping, like
Yeah, and I mean he's definitely had a ton. Just as you said, he's an accomplished writer with many of his works, being adapted. He's not a stranger. For those of you that are well versed with comics, he is not a stranger to superheroes as well. Having adapted some stories there. But I wanted to pull up the actual article itself. So it was out of Variety. Let me share it super fast. Let's see. Yes, here we go. All right. But here's my thing, as much as I'm happy to see, him be a part of perhaps a new tale of Superman. It also just kind of highlights a lot of the things that we're seeing, from the house of Warner Brothers. As much as we were talking about Mortal Kombat and how impressive the promotional strategy has been for that, it still begs the question of what's being done with their DC heroes. So yeah, just to quote what Coates specifically said, he stated, as you guys can see here, to be invited into the DC Extended Universe by Warner Brothers is a great, awesome thing. It's an honor. I look forward to meaningfully adding to the legacy of America's most iconic mythic hero. But as I said, everyone is saying the right thing, and as I said, I am supremely looking forward to what his take is on the character. However, it just highlights what's being done with the DCEU, the DC movieverse, however way you want to shape it or call it. Unlike what we're seeing with Marvel, where there is a plan and there is a concerted effort to plant the seeds of knowing what the end game is, so to speak, pun intended. But as much as there have been great successes in DC, and I'm looking at Wonder Woman, I'm looking at Aquaman, I'm looking at Joker, it still seems like they're still trying to find their footing when it comes to their superheroes, because like this film adds to add a question. Okay, so are we not going to have Cavill continue his run of Superman? And I mean, I know that we have the Snyder Cut, There's a potential with some of the other films that something might that he may potentially do that, but are they muddying the waters by constantly rebooting this character? So
they had to find a way. I mean, I know. I totally agree that yeah, it's kind. They weren't as organized. They kind of like are coming from a reactive side, but like that's what it seems like. Trying to make everything work, and it's like okay, yeah, I get it. People make mistakes, they learn, but at least I like how they're trying to find some sort of explanation. And I will say, at least DC. One thing that is cool about DC is that they are at least trying to make some standalone films explore something different. Like obviously with Joker. I mean, I thought Joker was, that was. I thought that was a decent movie, even though I think it was called something else. But at least they were trying something different. They're like, all right.
no, I definitely get you. As I said, go ahead.
Sorry. Superman is interesting because it's like, yeah, you already had Man of Steel, which I thought was, I love Man of Steel.
I like Man of Steel. I know a lot of people flack on Man of Steel, but for those of you out there, I love Man of Steel. So
I think they should have continued that vein, but whatever. Batman vs Superman, whatever. Some issues there. You got Justice League, but then you have the CW, universe with now with that. I just watched what's the pilot you were saying? Oh, right. I was like, this is
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's funny in talking about what Marvel does and what DC does. For me, superheroes are superheroes. I know a lot of people like to kind of take sides and say, oh, I'm a Marvel fanboy, I'm a DC fanboy. Superheroes are superheroes to me. If you execute a film well, I could care less if it's a DC character or if it's a Marvel character, if it's an Image character. I don't care. As long as the movie is awesome, that's all I really care about at the end of the day, and that you do the character justice, honestly. And I know in the past when it's come to DC, a lot of times I'll give credit where credit is due. When it's come to their television and when it's come to their animation, they have hit some huge strides in that regard, and Marvel is still, I feel, trying to catch up in that regard. However, when it's come to the live action, they are noticeably, or at least feels like they are noticeably behind in terms of trying to find what they're trying to do. So like kind of in speaking of it kind of in sports talk, Marvel is seems like a perennial figure that kind of has his act together, while Warner Brothers is a team that's still on the come up and is trying to find its identity when it comes to its superhero universe. As I said, there have been some wins along that way as they've been trying to figure it out, but hopefully they can really figure out what they're trying to do with their films. Because as you said, Superman versus Lois, for any of you that haven't seen it, that premiered, I guess it premiered this week, I believe. I saw the first episode, and it works quite well. Hopefully they're able to keep up that momentum of what they established in this series premiere. Because if they do, we have quite the show in our hands because it's very cinematic. It's very unlike any type of TV show that you would expect. It seems like it could, ideally be released in a cinema versus being on a small screen. But with that being said, I'm going to switch gears a second and switch over to another story that is actually within the DCEU as well. And that is apparently the character known as Blue Beetle. So, Jerome, go ahead, take it away. I'm going to pull up our story.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the definitely positive DC universe movies. I do respect how they're trying to bring these different characters in especially unique characters. So this is Blue Beetle. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't like very familiar with his background and everything, but I thought it was cool. It's like, look, he's it's a Mexican American comic, right? So it's basically the first Latino black
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, just the idea that we have another, another character who's a minority that they are, bringing into the fold, I think is a great thing. I'll be honest as well. When it comes to this character, in relation to some of the other characters that I know that are in the pantheon of DC Comics, I'm not as well versed. My only introduction, you'll yeah, a lot of you laugh when I say this, but my introduction, I believe, was briefly in Teen Titans in some of the episodes that I've seen. I believe it was Teen Titans that he's a part of, and since I'm a gamer, Injustice as well, because I like playing his character in terms of the moves that he has, because he has a pretty unique skill set. But still, just in general, just the idea of having bringing some more diversity, a much needed diversity to the pantheon of superhero films that we have, is always a great thing.
I'll
Um,
say one thing though. I do prefer though when it's like an original character coming to life, because then I think there's always room for growth. I'm not saying that the Superman movie isn't going to be like interesting, whatever, but I do like it when they like character you don't know about and make them, I mean, obviously most of us we know Black Panther, but a lot of people didn't know as much. Mainstream America didn't know as much. And look how Black Panther did. Now it's like this A-list superhero. Everybody, people are being like, people are looking up to Black Panther as opposed to like Superman. Had a lot of people. And so I feel like I think that's also important. I would like to see more characters that aren't known as well, or maybe are sort of known, but like people like us, maybe we're comic booky. It's pretty cool to me. But yeah, I think it's just a great idea, And also, I think you can take more risks because you're not as well known. It's like even with Blade. I remember when Blade came out. It's like I kind of knew about him, whatever, but like that's just like
but again, just as you're saying, just that idea of having some leeway to do something with the character, there's something to be said with that. And it also goes back to what I was saying too, of just uh while you're still executing a film, try to find out elements of it that you feel would be very poignant to society that that we're in now. And from what I understand, because I'm going to pull up the story, there is, because they give us a little bit of history in the story from that's originally from Variety. If you guys want to check it out, basically from what I understand here. So it says the studio has tapped Gareth Dunn Alcalcer, who wrote Universal Scarface remake, to pen the Blue Beetle screenplay. It says Zev Foreman is executive producing the film. And apparently it's not going to be, it's going to be one of the iterations of the character. I know we were talking about, that diversity piece. They were saying, so it says the original Blue Beetle character debuted in 1939. And we also had Dan Garrett as well, who was who took on that moniker. But Ray's is the most recent character that we had. So Ray's, created by Keith Giffen, John Rogers, and Cully Hammer, made his appearance in 2006. So just going back to that idea that there's so much material that you can pull from if you are adapting something, and just trying to find something that you feel would provide an interesting angle, an interesting story. At the end of the day, is all that people, at least for myself, I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but it, as long as you have an interesting angle and have a good story to tell, I could care less about whether the character I could care less about whether it's a character's coming from one house, comic book house, or another, so to speak. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that film, and what will definitely come from it. So
I'll say
go ahead.
he does look a little bit like I was looking for some. He does look a little bit like Cardioid in Marvel, the character that fights Spider. I was like, man, these comic book writers, they love like
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Speaking of that, you know, and feeling like a sense of deja vu and a lot of characters that are similar, it's really going to be interesting to see how people respond to. For those that are not familiar with the comics, how folks respond to Darkseid. So in the Snyder Cut, we're going to get the character Darkseid more so than what we got in our theatrical cut. I don't even, if I remember correctly, he's not even in there at all. He was completely like wiped from it. So it'll be interesting to see how people respond to that, because in essence, he's pretty much Thanos, at least the Thanos for the DCEU. And correct, I mean, for those of you, you can correct me if my big comic book readers out there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, Darkseid was came around before Thanos did, at least in the comic book. So even though a lot of people have responded to Thanos theatrically, it'll be interesting to see if people feel like DC is copying Marvel, when in fact they are not. They are providing a character who actually precedes Thanos. Yeah, indeed. It is. But in keeping with the superhero angle and the topic of superheroes, there was one other major. Speaking of comic book characters and the houses that they derive from, there was indeed another story that hit the web, and a lot of people were talking about it. But before we get into that, I'll just play the video. So stand by. All right, guys. So this week we received this video that dropped the title for, and actually, I'm sorry. There you go. They dropped the title for the new Spider-Man film. So Spider-Man No Way Home. It will be, from what I recall, will be releasing this Christmas. Jerome, you know, we had this title, this kind of, I appreciated kind of this metal, it's not metal, but meta approach that was used by Sony in dropping this title. What are your thoughts on it? And you know, what do you think of you know, us having this title revealed to us for Spider-Man 3?
I mean, to me, it wasn't really surprising. It's like they started with the whole homecoming. The next was Far From Home, so No Way Home. I mean, I get it. You know, all I know is like, I wonder if they do, if they try to hopefully spectacular, but that's fine. And I'm sure this No Way Home is gonna have something to do with all these multiverses or whatever that he's trying to get back. Like I said, I'm excited for this because to me, I mean, like I said, I don't know. It sounds like it's gonna be.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's cool. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It'll be interesting to see what comes of the finished product, because you know, we've seen so many people on set. You know, many of you that have been keeping track of the news and the casting news, you know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the various photos that have been taken of people that have been seen on set. So, you know, I'm not going to dig too deep into that of potential alternate versions of characters and characters returning. It's very exciting, and considering what Kevin Feige has been quoted as saying in terms of talking about some elements that we will see in play, or some elements that will bleed over from certain shows into the films have been will definitely be interesting, because from what he's been quoted as saying, WandaVision will have seeds that it plants that will continue on into Doctor Strange and the multiverse of madness, and in Spider-Man 3. So we'll almost have a very soft, I guess you can put it in quotation marks, a soft trilogy that will have a story that will start in WandaVision, will carry over to Spider-Man, and will wrap up in Doctor Strange, in the Doctor Strange sequel. And with all of that being said, you know, I found it, you know, hilarious, because for those of you that know, Holland is very well known for dropping spoilers, and I love how Sony now kind of uses, you know, that idea to kind of include it in their promotional strategy. Like they'll try to act like he has spilled something now in the last few times, and it's actually been completely planned. It's kind of like a, you know, wink at the audience. So that element has, you know, always been recently has been pretty cool. He definitely does. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see if they'll do. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they can ever kind of wrestle the rights that they have with Universal. I believe from last time I heard that you know, there's still some issues there that are happening in that regard. But if they ever decide to do another Hulk project outside, of course, of She-Hulk, it'll be interesting to see if they do something along those same lines to kind of play with that element that we're all aware of. Perhaps they might do it in the strategy for She-Hulk. Who knows? It'll be very interesting to see, for sure. Okay, all right. So switching gears out of the world of superheroes. I know we were talking about DC, we were talking about Marvel. There was another story that we wanted to talk about as well, and it holds a very special place for me, because it's actually related to my story with San Diego Comic-Con, and just one of those experiences that I had at my first San Diego Comic-Con, and that is a story that made the rounds from filmmaker Neil Blomkamp. So let me pull that up. He dropped the news via social media that he is indeed, or I should say, work is underway currently. And let me make sure. Yes, work is underway currently for a sequel to District 9. So he actually, and if you guys can see that, I'm gonna pull it up here. He actually dropped that District 10, excuse me, the screenplay for District 10 is being written by Sharto Copley, who many of you will recognize as the star of the original film, as well as Terry Tatchell, and it's on its way. And the reason why it carries such a special place, you know, in talking about, you guys are probably thinking, wow, how's that connected to Comic-Con? So at my first San Diego Comic-Con, I vividly remember in trying to prepare for the con that week. One of the things that, you know, I read about doing, because I did all this research on what things I should be, you know, aware of when going to San Diego, and one of the recommendations that were thrown out to me was just the idea of reaching out to different groups that are affiliated with the con, and seeing if there are any events that you could be a part of and that you can find out about. And lo and behold, when reaching out on Facebook, and I can't remember the group, I don't even know if I'm a part of it anymore, but one of the things that I reached out about is, hey, this is my first San Diego Comic-Con. Are there any cool events that you guys want to that you guys could like recommend for me or can send me information about? And one of the things that randomly came out of the blue was, a person reached out and said, hey, I have tickets for this film called District 9. Would you be interested in going? They're supposed to have like they're supposed to have a discussion with Copley, who I mentioned before. And they're going to have Peter Jackson there giving like an introduction to the film. Would you be interested? I was like, yeah, of course. Like, this is my first Comic-Con, and I'm being able to go to advanced screening at San Diego Comic-Con. And I think at that point they hadn't really shown it to the world. I feel like, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong out there, but back in 2009, that was my first Comic-Con. That was the first. I think Comic-Con was one of the first places that they debuted the film before they kind of released it out to the masses and started doing their advanced screening push. So yeah, it holds a very special place in my heart, in memories that I've had of Comic-Con. So with that idea being made, Jerome, what are your thoughts on them making a sequel or having a sequel in development for this picture? Me as well, and then that's another thing, kind of similar in the same vein. Getting some deja vu of Man of Steel. A lot of people are kind of in different camps when it comes to Man of Steel, and I understand what issues people have with Elysium, but at the same time, in terms of how ambitious it was in terms of what it was trying to do, I did enjoy Elysium on that level. Sometimes you have films that try to be super ambitious and they don't always get to the finish line, but you can still appreciate their efforts to get there. You know what I mean? Definitely. Definitely. Right. He was supposed to also do a quasi reboot to Alien. Like there for a long time, I know that there was that sequel that was in development forever, and I feel like he kind of got really frustrated with that, and that's why that what we're seeing. I know he's been doing a lot of like film shorts and kind of still keeping the creative juices flowing and doing a lot of the film shorts that he has been doing that have been awesome. But yeah, like there was a whole I think it was for a couple of years where he was supposed to be doing a brand new Alien that was going to basically ignore the events of the third Alien film and bring back Newt and bring back I'm brain farting on the character's name, Hicks. It was supposed to bring back Hicks from Alien 2, where they were actually both alive and kicking, and going on a new adventure with Ripley. But it's funny that you were talking about just that idea of having such a successful original film, because it actually was quoted in the story. That's why I have it shared. Let me pull it up. So I want to, discuss that and just that idea. So when it was brought up initially, well, actually, let me just backtrack. So as I said, I saw the film back in 2009 before it was like released out to the masses, and they have it here in this news story in Variety. So in 2009, District 9, produced by TriStar Pictures, Block Hansen, Wingnut Films, grossed 211 million worldwide, the largest ever sum for a South African film. Just as I said, you were talking about, how good it was and how poignant it was. It received 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Original Screenplay for Blomkamp and Terry Tatchell. Those are some big shoes to follow up on. Even when it's your own work, you want to make sure that it's being, done right. Because even like back in 2007, just scrolling down, there was a AMA, Ask Me Anything, where Blomkamp, was asked why, a sequel hadn't been done, and his response was, okay, so with District 10, the basic answer is yes, that, it's something that he's, looking to do a few years ago. I want to go back to that world and tell the rest of the story with Wickus and Christopher. The issue right now is that I have many other projects and ideas that I also want to work on and complete, and most importantly, the exact reason to make District 10 needs to be very clear. The first film was based so explicitly on real themes and topics from South Africa that affected me greatly growing up there, that we need to make sure that the next film does not forget that. So, it's a case in point, talking about just exactly what you were saying, why we hadn't seen a sequel, up to this point. And, that's a good reason to have. But at the same time, there is something to be said about striking when the iron is hot, so to speak. And when there's been that much time, I mean, gosh, we said 2009, that was, 12 years ago. There have been sequels that have had that much of a rest or breathing room between one installment to another. And sometimes it's worked to its benefit, and sometimes in cases where like franchises have failed miserably because there's been such a long time since people have had a chance to be a part of that world, and so they kind of have to reacclimate themselves to the rules of that world and to the elements that it introduces. But perhaps there's something to be said about District 9, and that there are issues that it touches on that even to this day, with everything that has been going on in that world, are still very poignant. And there is an opera. I feel that for that particular franchise, now that we know that another film is being made and is in development, there is a lot of meat, as you said, that can be pulled from it in terms of ways that they can go with it. Definitely. So with that being said, guys, those were the main major stories that we wanted to talk about that fell or hit the made the rounds this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this video, of course, be sure to like and subscribe here, right down there on, I guess, or I should say down here, down here, the subscribe button. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified whenever we have any other content that drops. There was a recent interview with Nicholas Jarecki from the film Crisis that you can check out now. That film released this weekend, and it will be releasing next month on digital. We also do a lot of episode reviews of a couple of shows. Right now, we're still in the middle of American Gods, and that's led by Emily Whitten, which you can check out on Sundays at 6 o'clock. So be on the lookout for that. Hits tomorrow. As I mentioned to you guys before, right now we do have an episode of The Expanse for the season finale that aired a little while ago. So you can check that out, but we will be coming back with the same team of hosts to do the sixth and final season. We will in a couple of weeks, as I had dropped last week, we will be doing Falcon and Winter Soldier, doing a show of that that you can be on the lookout for, and I will be sure to drop for you when the weekly time for that will be dropping in the coming days. And other than, of course, one last thing, the cons that we have. If we have any other virtual cons that go virtual, we have a recent one that you can check out now, which is for Farpoint Con, but there will be others should they go virtual that we will likely be doing live streams for. So make sure you check those out. If there are a couple of shows that you guys are interested in us covering, whether it's a con, whether it's a show, just feel free to drop us a comment and let us know, and we'll look into it. But other than that, Jerome, anything you want to drop before we leave?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Liam Productions. Definitely follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, Shakers Unlimited, Screen Shakers Unlimited. So move and shake
All right, cool. Sounds good. Well, yes. So I am your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movies and Shakers Unlimited, and you can find me, of course, at Brandon Choi ENT, as you can see down there on Twitter, and Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Be safe out there, and we'll see you soon. Move and shake.